What if you're not broken? What if you're not depressed, just disconnected from something sacred inside you? You're not lazy, you're not a failure, you're not weak for feeling empty. You were simply never shown how to carry the weight of your own soul. Carl Jung once locked himself away with only a pen, a book, and the terrifying voices within. He didn't run from his shadows. He danced with them. His little red book was not a diagnosis, it was a descent, a map into the underworld of the self. You see, society tells men like you to man up, to get stronger, get richer, get a girl, and move on. But Jung whispers something different through the pages, soaked in crimson ink. Beware the unlived life. Beware the man who wears a mask for so long, he forgets the face beneath it. Maybe your depression is the soul's rebellion. Maybe it's the part of you that refuses to settle for a life stripped of meaning, of love, of connection. You're not here to become a product. You're here to become whole. So let's go there, into the hidden cave Jung wrote about, into the fragments of yourself you've been taught to ignore, the pain, the longing, the truth. Because maybe, just maybe, what you're calling depression is actually your soul knocking on the door, begging to be seen. Modern culture fears the fall. We treat emotional collapse like a malfunction, something to medicate, hide, or power through. But Carl Jung saw it differently. To him, what you call depression might actually be the soul's invitation to go deeper. In his red book, Jung deliberately withdrew from society, not because he was weak, but because he knew healing doesn't happen on the surface. It happens in the descent. He called this the night sea journey, a spiritual trial where the ego shatters and the real self emerges from the wreckage. You see, most men are never initiated. They grow older but not deeper. They gain muscle, money, maybe even a woman, but remain strangers to their own soul. Why? Because no one taught them how to suffer meaningfully. No one told them the fall is not failure. It's initiation. When your career crashes, when she walks away, when you sit alone in your apartment with a drink in your hand and tears you won't let fall, that's not the end. That's the beginning. That's the cave Jung entered when he wrote to himself in blood, red ink. That's the furnace where boys burn and men are forged. Initiation is brutal. It strips you of everything you thought you were. Your job title, your physique, your charm, your plans. It shows you how small those things really are. And in their absence, something ancient wakes up. A voice inside that says, I am still here. That voice is not weak. It's not broken. It's real. It's what remains when the world's noise fades. It's the self Jung spoke of, the part of you connected to eternity, to myth, to meaning. But here's the hard truth. You must go through it. There are no shortcuts, no affirmations or quick fixes. You have to feel what you've run from. You have to confront the pain, the fear, the silence, because only by going down can you rise again. So the next time you feel yourself falling, ask, what if this isn't my breakdown? What if this is my breakthrough? You're not falling apart, you're being initiated. And if you're brave enough to endure it, you'll meet the man you were always meant to be. You've been taught to hide it, the rage, the lust, the loneliness, the ugly jealousy you feel when someone else gets the girl, the ache when no one texts you back, the shame when you feel like you're not enough, no matter how hard you try. You bury it deep, pretending it's not there, smile, work harder, lift heavier, sleep around, tell yourself you're fine, but deep inside something growls. That growl is your shadow, and Jung said you ignore it at your peril. The shadow isn't evil, it's not your enemy. It's the parts of you you've disowned to survive in a world that only rewards the polished mask. The truth is, every bad emotion you suppress is raw energy. And what you repress doesn't disappear, it waits. It leaks out in your relationships, in your self-sabotage, in the way you numb your pain. Jung taught that if you don't face your shadow, it will rule you from the dark. That's why you feel out of control sometimes, why you lash out and regret it, why you ghost people you actually care about. You're not crazy. You're fragmented. And here's the paradox. Your greatest strength is inside your shadow. The anger you fear, it's also your boundaries. The lust you shame, it's your life force. The sadness you hide, it's your empathy. The fear you deny, it's the guardian of your truth. To integrate the shadow is to reclaim your birthright as a whole man. Not a perfect man, not a nice guy. A real man capable of feeling everything without being ruled by anything. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That's not poetry. That's instruction. Go into the parts of yourself that scare you, write about them, sit with them, bring them into the light. Not to destroy them, but to befriend them, because the man who owns his darkness cannot be manipulated, cannot be shamed, and cannot be controlled. He's not dangerous to others. He's dangerous to everything that ever tried to silence him. And once you reclaim the power hidden in your shadow, you stop chasing respect because you start commanding it. Most men think they're afraid of rejection, but what they're really afraid of is being seen. Because to love truly, deeply, vulnerably is the most dangerous thing a man can do in a world that tells him to stay in control, to not feel too much, to play it cool, to chase her, win her, keep her interested, all while never letting her in. But Carl Jung knew something most modern men have forgotten. Love is not a reward, it's a test. It's not the happy ending, it's the crucible. In the Red Book, Jung writes as a man split open by longing. Not just romantic longing, but the aching desire to be known without being destroyed. He realized that to truly love, a man must drop the mask and allow himself to be undone, because love will undo you. It will expose your deepest fears, that you're not good enough, that you're too needy, that if she sees the real you, she'll leave. So you armor up, you play the game, you read the books, you learn how to be hive. You become irresistible, unfazed, untouchable. But behind all that, you're still lonely. Here's the truth Jung whispered beneath all his mythic visions. The masculine soul cannot be whole until it learns to surrender, not in weakness, but in intimacy. It is in love, not in conquest, where your edges are burned away, where your childhood wounds are triggered, where the false self cannot survive. And that is why most men run, not because they're cowards, but because no one ever taught them that love is supposed to hurt, not violently, but surgically. It cuts through the ego, it makes room for truth. Love will show you where you are still afraid, still hiding, still pretending. And if you stay, if you breathe, if you let her see the boy you've buried under armor, you become something rare. A man who loves not from need, but from wholeness. A man who doesn't seek a woman to fill his void, but welcomes her into his overflowing soul. This is the final trial, not to conquer love, but to stand naked inside it and remain. Every man chasing the perfect woman is really chasing something he hasn't found within. She's not just blonde or brunette, warm or wild, nurturing or fierce. She is your soul's reflection, not a person, but a presence. Jung called her the Anima, the inner feminine soul image that lives in every man's unconscious. And here's the truth most men never hear. Until you meet her inside yourself, you'll be lost in love outside of yourself. You'll cling to women to feel whole. You'll confuse sexual chemistry with emotional safety. You'll chase the next fantasy, then resent her for not completing you. Sound familiar? Jung's anima isn't a mythological idea. It's psychological reality. The anima is the source of your intuition, your creativity, your longing, your capacity to feel deeply. She's the one whispering when you ache for beauty, when music moves you, when you stare into the night sky and feel small and infinite at once. But in the modern world, men are taught to suppress all of that. Don't be sensitive, don't cry, don't feel too much. So your anima retreats into dreams, into projections, into your unconscious. And then you look for her in women. You fall in love with a version of her you think they can give you, and when they can't, or won't, you feel betrayed. But they never could give her to you, because she was never them. She was you all along. Integrating the anima means turning inward. It means feeling what you've numbed. It means writing the poem you never dared to share, crying without shame, trusting your gut instead of the algorithm. It means letting your soul become fertile ground again, not just a battlefield of logic and dominance, but a place where vulnerability grows without fear of judgment. When a man meets his anima, something extraordinary happens. He becomes magnetic, not because he's trying, but because he's whole. He no longer seeks a woman to heal him. He meets her as an equal, not a savior. And from that wholeness, real love becomes possible, not possession, not performance, but partnership. So if you keep losing yourself in women, stop. Turn inward. She's been waiting, not in her arms, but in your heart. You keep searching for answers in logic, but the soul speaks in a language older than words. You scroll, you consume, you analyze, you try to think your way out of your suffering. But Carl Jung warned us, the modern man is starving for meaning, not information. And the reason you feel lost, it's because you've been trained to ignore the one place meaning actually lives. Your suffering. Jung believed that the places we avoid hold the keys to our transformation. He wrote, "Only in the deepest darkness can we see the faintest light." The problem isn't that you're weak or unmotivated. The problem is that you've built your life around avoiding pain instead of listening to it. Pain is not the enemy, it's the compass. The anxiety you silence with distractions, the heartbreak you cover with hookups, the restlessness you try to fix with productivity, these aren't just obstacles. They're messages, clues. Your soul is not trying to destroy you, it's trying to wake you up. Jung spoke often of symbols, those strange recurring images in dreams, art, and even daydreams. He believed they were not nonsense, but guidance. Your psyche is always whispering, not in logic, but in metaphor. And if you ignore those whispers long enough, they turn into screams, breakdowns, burnout, isolation. You may say, "I just want to be happy." But the soul doesn't want comfort. It wants wholeness, and wholeness requires descent into the very emotions you've been taught to avoid. Into grief, into guilt, into the moments you don't want to revisit because buried beneath them is you. True meaning doesn't arrive wrapped in inspiration. It rises from facing what hurts. The wound is where the sacred enters. The fear is where courage is born. The shame is where your most authentic story begins. If you're numb, it's not because you feel too much. It's because you stopped listening to what mattered. So the next time you feel empty or lost, don't escape it. Enter it. Look into the place that scares you. Not to conquer it, but to recover the part of you still hidden there. That's where meaning lives, and it's been waiting for you all along. You've been chasing a lie. The lie that you need to be perfect to be loved, that you must be flawless to be respected, that unless you've made it, you're not worthy of being seen. But Carl Jung shattered that illusion when he said, "I'd rather be whole than good." Because the truth is, perfection is a mask, and every mask is a prison. From a young age, you were conditioned to perform. Get the grades, build the body, make the money, hide the mess, no weakness, no confusion, no cracks. So you built a persona, a version of yourself polished enough to earn approval, but hollow enough to never feel at home. That's why you can win and still feel empty. That's why you can get the girl and still feel unseen. That's why no matter how far you climb, your soul still whispers, "This isn't it," because perfection is armor, and armor keeps the world out. But it also keeps you in. Jung taught that healing doesn't happen by becoming better. It happens by becoming whole, by integrating all the parts of yourself you've been taught to deny. The insecure boy, the furious man, the longing heart, the wild creative, the one who failed, the one who still hopes. Wholeness is not about being without wounds. It's about owning them without shame. You don't need to be the strongest man in the room. You need to be the truest, because wholeness invites real connection. Wholeness brings peace that doesn't depend on outcome. Wholeness makes you unshakable, not because nothing can touch you, but because you've already touched the depths of who you are. You've met the shadow, you've danced with the anima, you've walked through the fire, and you didn't come out perfect. You came out real. That's what the world is starving for, not more polished men, more present men, men who feel, who speak truth, who no longer perform. Men who don't seek to dominate but to connect. Men who stand as they are, scarred, sincere, sovereign. So drop the act, release the chase. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be whole, and that is more than enough.